Analog switches on a TKL? This is a keyboard I've been hearing about for a long time. An ambitious project, no doubt, but I'm glad that it's finally coming to fruition and hopefully to a desk near you. This is McMerlin, and I'll catch you all after the break. Back in August of 2015, Calder posted on GeekHack asking for feedback on a new keyboard they were designing. I think this is a great move for any keyboard manufacturer. I've linked the post down below so you can all read it on your spare time. I just want to say kudos to Calder and the rest of his team for doing this the right way from the very beginning. More companies should do this. Fast forward to 2017 and I finally have the Wooting One in hand. So I don't actually own this keyboard. It was sent to me as a demo sample, but regardless, I will still give my honest review. This keyboard has a ton of features. Some of the major ones are it's modular, meaning that you can swap out switches, keycaps, and even the top plate. It's analog, it's got per key RGB, and it's also programmable. I normally talk about the box during my reviews as I really like good box designs. Unfortunately, this is just a sample unit. This is all I got. The keyboard comes in basic and premium packages. The basic package lets you choose what switches you want, whereas the premium comes with linears and includes a set of clicky switches. I got the premium package. The keyboard itself feels very light, but please keep in mind, light does not mean cheap. An excellent example of this is the HHKB. The keyboard is actually very sturdy. There doesn't seem to be any flex when you do this. It's pretty well made. A lot of companies have their logo on the front of the keyboard, and I can understand that companies want their name out there, especially if they're sponsoring an esports team, but I actually think it looks ugly. Thankfully, this is what Wooting does. It's very tactfully placed, and Wooting does it quite well. This keyboard has a lot of gaming applications, but thankfully the keycaps don't have gaming legends. This makes the keyboard suitable at home and in the office. You'll also notice that the keyboard has a standard bottom row. The Control, Alt, FN, and Windows keys are all 1.25 units, and the spacebar is 6.25 units. Makes it very easy to find keycaps wherever you go. Speaking of keycaps, the keycaps on this board are pretty bad. While the keycaps are backlit compatible, they're not double shot. So they have this black finish on it that will shine over time and eventually wear out really quick. I would highly recommend you swap out the keycaps when you get this keyboard. The Wooting One also comes with plate-mounted stabilizers. Since the switches are also removable, it's very easy to repair or replace broken stabilizers. One of the major, or not the major component of the Wooting One, are the Flaretech infrared analog switches. These switches read exactly how far down you've pressed. It goes anywhere from 0% to 100%. Think about it this way, if you're playing a first-person shooter, the more you press the key, the faster your character will run. The switches are rated for up to 100 million actuations. That's double the advertised life of a Cherry MX switch. It's got a total travel distance of 4 millimeters, and you can program the actuation to be anywhere from 1.6 to 3.6 millimeters. Keep in mind, this only changes the actuation point. It doesn't change the feel of the switch whatsoever. Speaking of switch feel, these switches are very smooth. The spec sheet states that there is no metal contact between the switch and the keyboard PCB. This leads to no corrosion or wear of material that can cause key chatter. It's pretty impressive. So how does this work? The PCB has the top-facing infrared sensor, which detects whenever you press the switch. It actually detects how far down you've pressed the switch, which is where the analog factor comes into play. Unfortunately, when typing on a Wooting One, there's a lot of rattle and there's a lot of ping. I've never really cared about ping before, maybe because I've never noticed it, or I've just accepted that it's part of the MX switch design, but this ping is really loud, it's very, very noticeable, and it annoys me. According to Desauthority, ping comes from the sound of the spring inside a switch while it's being compressed. A solution has been to lube the spring, but since this is an infrared sensor, I'm not sure how it will react to it. You can try, but you did not hear that here. Another way is to silence the case and do some switch modification, just like what Felian1337 has done. If you want to know more, I've linked his post in the description below. The back of the keyboard shows that it's got a few rubber pads and rubber feet that you can lift up to change keyboard angle. It's got 3 channels for a cable. It's pretty standard. In addition, it uses a USB micro connector, the same that's used in most smartphones today. To take the keyboard apart, you have to remove some keycaps to access the 12 screws on top of the keyboard. Once you've done this, the top plate slides right off. I've been told that while this plate attracts lots of fingerprints, the production one won't. The plate is a very basic design, so I'm hoping that some enthusiast out there will figure out a way to make it heavier by making it out of brass or stainless steel or tungsten. As you can see, everything is plate mounted. And look, the stabilizers are actually lubed. The PCB is secured to the bottom half of the case with a few screws. There are no connections at all to the PCB. Basically, the switches just rest on it. Each switch should go over 3 components: the RGB LED, the infrared sensor, and a diode for NKRO. Everything is surface mounted, and from what I can see, workmanship is pretty good. There are no extra globs of solder or any traces of the PCB being burned. So how does the Wooting One software look? Once again, this is a demo version, so I actually have an alpha version 0.1.1. The funny thing is, I have a Windows 8 system, and if you don't have the Wooting One connected while you boot up the software, it will crash. However, they now have an updated version. Depending on when you get your Wooting One, you may be subject to a quick software update. Won't take long at all, and if you have your Wooting One connected, the lights will flash on and off. The utility is fairly complicated and takes a lot of playing around to totally figure out. I'm not going to get too in-depth, but hopefully you'll get the gist of some of what the utility can do. What you'll see first is a digital representation of the Wooting One and all its backlit keys. If you select your favorite color, in this case red, and then click a corresponding on-screen key, not only will it turn red on screen, but the light will also turn red on your Wooting One. If you disconnect your keyboard at this point, you'll lose this, so to save the settings, press the Save to Keyboard button. Next up, you've got the general keyboard settings section. You can change your actuation point here anywhere from 1.5 to 3.6 millimeters, which is a little more than what the switch can actually do. The switch can only go from 1.6 millimeters to 3.6 millimeters. I can't tell for sure if this actually changes the actuation while you're doing this, but once again, don't forget to hit that Save to Keyboard button. To clear a binding, right-click on your mouse. To set it, click once to highlight and then press what key you want on the physical keyboard. Don't try clicking the on-screen one. In my copy, it says DKS or double keystroke is very experimental. All feedback is welcome. What does this mean? It means you can actuate the switch at 2 points, and these 2 points will have different results. Anyway, the top left has different profiles for digital and analogs 1 to 3. As you cycle through these, you'll actually notice that your physical keyboard can't keep up. Clicking the layer you want again will ensure that the keyboard matches it. Let's do Analog Profile 1. You have a lot more key bindings to choose from here. Looking at this, it becomes clear that the Wooting One isn't fully programmable in the TMK or QMK sense, but it does have quite a few things you can program. You also have advanced Gamepad settings in which you are able to set dead zones, sensitivity start and ends, and you're even able to change the sensitivity curves. This is not a force curve. As I mentioned earlier, the switch will feel the same no matter how you tweak it. These settings are quite advanced for me. I spend most of my time on a keyboard typing code, and none of these settings will probably make me a better coder. This is looking to be a great keyboard, and I'm excited to see the production units soon. Unfortunately, the price is pretty high up there, and it's approaching custom keyboard territory. For someone like me who plays an occasional game here and there, the analog and programming of actuation points are pretty overkill. I can imagine Wooting sponsoring an esports team and having everyone tune their keyboards based on how long they've been playing or how tired they feel. For me, I won't ever go that far. I do like being able to swap the plate and the switches and the stabilizers. That's a really great feature for me, but the ping on this keyboard is really bad. Bottom line, if you're an avid gamer, check this keyboard out. It may very well change the game for you. But if you're like me, you're just a casual typist with some casual game playing, you can find other keyboards at much cheaper prices which will accomplish exactly what you need to do. Anyway, this has been another episode of Mech Merlin. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you smash that like button. And if you have any comments or questions, put them down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'll see you all in the next episode. If you haven't figured it out by now, this channel is all about mechanical keyboards. Stay tuned for my next video.